There is a growing shift in how we view breakfast, not simply as a routine meal to start the day, but as a powerful metabolic lever. Deep inside the human gut, hormones are constantly sending messages that determine how we feel, how much we eat, and whether our bodies store or burn fat. Of these, one hormone has recently taken center stage in the global conversation about weight loss and metabolic health: GLP-1, or glucagon-like peptide 1. This hormone, though unfamiliar to many outside the medical world, could be the missing link in the weight loss puzzle. The story of breakfast is evolving, and it has more to do with this gut-derived messenger than most people realize. New research reveals that the type of food eaten first thing in the morning can either amplify or mute this hormone's beneficial effects. And this shift in hormone activity has dramatic implications not just for cravings and satiety but for long-term fat loss and overall metabolic well-being. GLP-1 is not a new discovery, but only recently has its broader significance been appreciated. Secreted in the lower gut, this hormone signals fullness to the brain, slows down the movement of food through the stomach, and assists in the management of blood sugar by enhancing insulin release only when glucose levels rise. This precise, conditional support makes it an ideal regulatory mechanism, ensuring the body doesn't overreact or underreact. In a perfectly balanced system, GLP-1 keeps hunger in check and energy use optimized. When the hormone is functioning well, individuals report a sense of satisfaction after meals and are less likely to snack compulsively. But in many people, especially those with metabolic imbalances like insulin resistance or obesity, the GLP-1 signal is weak or irregular. Without this full message being sent to the brain, hunger lingers and cravings take control. The pharmaceutical world has taken notice, developing synthetic versions of GLP-1 to assist with weight management. But what if this natural hormone could be stimulated more effectively, simply by eating the right kind of breakfast? It is often assumed that weight management boils down to simple arithmetic, calories in versus calories out. But hormones like GLP-1 reveal a more complex system at play, one where quality of food overrides sheer quantity. Different macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, have different effects on the endocrine system. These effects begin to show almost immediately after food is consumed. When someone eats a carbohydrate-rich breakfast, such as cereal, toast, or oatmeal, the body responds with a surge in blood glucose. To handle this spike, insulin is rapidly secreted to shuttle glucose out of the bloodstream and into cells. This fast and sharp insulin response does help regulate glucose, but it also suppresses fat burning and often leads to a blood sugar crash, which drives hunger soon after. For many, this means reaching for a snack mid-morning, beginning a roller coaster of cravings that continues throughout the day. On the other hand, a breakfast composed primarily of protein and healthy fats triggers a different hormonal cascade. Insulin levels rise much more modestly, while satiety hormones like GLP-1 become more prominent. Without a dramatic glucose spike, the body remains in a more stable state, allowing fat metabolism to continue and hunger to stay at bay for hours. It is not only about avoiding insulin spikes, it is about actively supporting the body's natural hunger control systems. Protein and fat don't just sit idly in the digestive tract. They work with the gut lining, sending signals to the brain that say, "I'm full, and I don't need to eat for a while." Not everyone responds to food the same way. Two people can eat identical meals and experience entirely different outcomes in terms of hunger, energy, and fat storage. This variability lies in hormonal responsiveness, particularly involving GLP-1 and insulin. In individuals with lean metabolic profiles, carbohydrates can still produce a mild satiety effect through GLP-1. But in those who struggle with metabolic dysfunction, the same carbohydrate-rich meal does very little to suppress appetite. The result is a continued search for food, even after consuming a significant number of calories. This mismatch between caloric intake and satiety is a central issue in obesity and weight gain. The body may be flooded with energy, but if the hormones responsible for saying, "stop eating," are muted or ignored, hunger persists. And when hunger persists, willpower alone cannot stem the tide of overeating. By contrast, when GLP-1 is stimulated early in the day through specific food choices, this sets the tone for the entire day's metabolic performance. Fat loss becomes less about battling cravings and more about letting the body naturally regulate its intake. The format in which food is consumed also plays a role in hormonal response. Liquid calories, like those found in smoothies or protein shakes, often bypass some of the body's satiety checkpoints. Even when composed of quality ingredients, these drinks do not require chewing, they move through the stomach faster, and they do not activate the full array of hormonal responses that solid foods do. Chewing, the stretching of the stomach wall, and the slower release of nutrients all contribute to the optimal stimulation of GLP-1 and other appetite-regulating hormones. When food is consumed as part of a mixed, whole food meal, something that takes time to digest, the result is a much more pronounced feeling of fullness. Thus, the format of breakfast is as important as its content. Eating real food, especially protein and fat in a whole form like eggs, meat, or nuts, helps the body recognize that it has been fed. It is not just about feeding calories but about feeding the right signals. Carbohydrates are not the villain, they are a macronutrient essential to human life. But the timing and quantity matter greatly, especially for individuals trying to lose fat or manage blood sugar. One strategy that has shown promise is to consume carbohydrates primarily in the morning, when the body is more insulin sensitive, and to reduce carbohydrate intake later in the day. This approach leverages the body's natural rhythm, allowing for some carbohydrate metabolism when it is most efficient, while avoiding late-day spikes that can interfere with sleep, recovery, and fat burning. Still, for individuals with significant metabolic challenges, even morning carbohydrates can present issues. In such cases, a low-carbohydrate, high-fat, and high-protein breakfast may offer the cleanest hormonal profile, minimal insulin, high GLP-1, and sustained satiety. One of the most surprising outcomes of manipulating breakfast macronutrients is the disappearance of what many call food noise. This constant mental chatter, thoughts about what to eat next, desires for specific comfort foods, and low-level hunger that never fully fades, can dominate a person's day. For those with weight struggles, this noise can become exhausting. By stimulating GLP-1 early and keeping insulin levels low, food noise quiets down. The mind becomes less preoccupied with food. Decisions about what to eat become easier, as the body is no longer sending mixed or exaggerated hunger signals. Energy becomes more stable, and the day feels less like a battle against urges. Over time, this leads to a subtle reprogramming of appetite. As the body gets used to feeling full from nutrient-dense, low-carb breakfasts, cravings become less frequent. Emotional eating declines. The mind becomes clearer. And most importantly, fat loss becomes less about restriction and more about rhythm. When comparing traditional breakfast staples, things like toast, juice, cereal, or oatmeal, to a meal of eggs, avocado, and perhaps some grilled meat, the difference in hormonal response is profound. While the former triggers glucose and insulin spikes that soon crash, the latter provides sustained energy and hormonal balance. This doesn't mean that everyone should eliminate carbohydrates entirely. But it does mean that carbohydrates should be used strategically, not habitually. The ideal breakfast may not be the one with the most convenience or the sweetest taste, but the one that speaks the loudest to the body's internal regulators. Eating in alignment with hormonal biology turns breakfast into a tool, not just a tradition. It becomes a starting point for metabolic momentum rather than a hurdle to overcome. The growing understanding of GLP-1 and insulin reveals a powerful truth. The body has the wisdom to regulate weight, but it needs the right inputs. Each morning offers a chance to influence that regulation, not through deprivation or extreme dieting, but through deliberate nourishment. Choosing a protein-rich, low-carb breakfast is not a fad. It is a return to the biology that kept our ancestors lean and energetic. It is a shift away from modern hyper-processed options that have hijacked hunger cues and undermined metabolic health. This is not about counting calories or fearing food. It is about understanding how the body speaks, and learning how to listen. A well-composed breakfast can be the loudest and most helpful voice in that conversation. And there you have it. Your first meal of the day is way more powerful than you think. By simply rethinking what you eat for breakfast, you can naturally boost satiety, quiet cravings, and activate fat-burning hormones like GLP-1 without relying on willpower or prescriptions. If this helped you see breakfast in a whole new light, drop a like, share this with someone stuck in a cereal cycle, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into how small changes can lead to massive transformations. Thanks for watching.